Okay, so this time, we're still kind of talking about fly selection. The last video was salmon flies, and now I'm going to get a little bit more specifically into steelhead flies. King salmon, I had the 3 stages of the salmon run. Steelhead, really, you've got that spawning run that they go on in the spring, but you also have winter fishing and fall fishing, because they come in the fall behind the salmon to eat the eggs and then stay there all winter, and so you can fish for them all winter long, and then those fish get ready to spawn, and more fish that stayed out in the lake throughout the winter come in to spawn as well. So this video, rather than the stages of the spawn, I'm gonna break it down into the 3 seasons, because each season is a little different as far as the techniques and the flies you might use. So in the fall, we're gonna strip streamers and then swing flies. That's gonna be your streamer fishing, and then you're gonna nymph behind the spawning salmon to pick up the early steelhead, because that's really what they're gonna be focused on, is salmon eggs. So first off is going to be fall fish. The most fish that if you're looking for numbers, the most fish you're going to catch is going to be drifting king-sized egg flies. Eggs are eggs, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but we've got the big salmon-sized eggs here in the fall. If you have active fish spawning, you're going to use the bright colors. And then as you get, into November and there's, little to no salmon spawning, you still might want to use eggs, because those fish are still kind of keyed in, on eggs floating down the river. You want to go with the more muted colors. So I've got some brown here, some light pink, white even. This brown is called like dead egg color. I believe these are all McFly foam. Red dot eggs, and then actually the baby blue can be effective as well as a dead egg color. So as you get later and closer to winter, after the salmon are done or they're winding down, go from your bright colors to your duller colors, and that'll keep the egg bite going for you a little longer. And then the drunken disorderly, if you're stripping flies, I'll get a couple variations out here. This is the standard D&D. You're probably 4 to 5 inches long on this one. A mini D&D in this one, you go from a professionally tied one to one of my first ones that I ever tied. This is a mini D&D, so just a smaller version. This one's maybe 3 inches. Again, the standard D&D. If you had low water, low clear water, you might want to go with the mini D&D, and then the Shad Wrap edition with the bent hook, if you need to get down even faster than the normal ones will get. And then swing flies, we'll get into this maybe a little more here when we talk about winter fishing and stuff, where this is going to come a little bit more into play. But your standard intruder, these are tube flies. Intruder tube flies are a good way to go. A simple marabou, all marabou and flash tube fly would be good. And then you might have a need for a sculpin helmet, so heavily weighted sculpin pattern, or maybe a swing leech, an all black swing leech might be the way to go too. So I like to have some sculpins, some leeches, some standard intruders, and then there's the standard intruders, and then some simple marabou flies in multiple colors. So as we move into winter, you don't have the spawning fish anymore in the river. The salmon are gone and dead and gone. So swinging in the cooler water and nymphing bugs. So your stoneflies and hare's ears and stuff like that. That's really going to be how you target the steelhead. Your deeper, slower holes are going to be in good structure are going to be where the fish are at. They're gonna, as the water cools, they're gonna move around less and less. So they want less current to fight, and they want the food to come to them. They're gonna slow down. So those deeper, slower bends and holes are gonna be, and structure with good current breaks is going to be what you want to focus on. The steelhead in the winter, as you get into November, December, and then in the cold months, they're starting to eat like resident trout. They're seeing bugs float by them, all the time, and they're starting to eat those things as opposed to just chasing down, eggs or bait fish or things like that. So you really start to see nymphing behavior is similar to resident trout once you get into the summer or the winter months. So I like to use for once that kind of starts, my fly selection is going to go from eggs, dead salmon colored eggs, in maybe early November to nymphs in November, December, and through until the spawn in the spring. And so then you're going to be nymphing your caddis flies. So I like to keep a dozen or so, usually size like 14 and 16 caddis. So I'll keep a dozen or so of those. You've got your standard hare's ear nymphs is going to be super effective in some of the Paramarcat. I'll just throw that out there. The hare's ear nymph is super effective in the PM. Size 16, I think is kind of preferred by some of the guides and stuff. When I've fished in the winter with guides, size 16 hare's ear was almost always one of the flies on a nymphing rig. And then I've got some hex nymphs in here as well, which those are going to be just kind of searching patterns. They're a little bit more meat on the bone there, so you might move a fish. The small stuff isn't working. A hex nymph might move a fish because it kind of doubles as a little bait fish. It's a kind of a meaty fly, so they want to expend less energy, and so a bigger meal might be enticing to a steelhead in the cold weather. And then stoneflies are a good option as well. And stoneflies, will start to hatch in the spring. So the closer you get to spring, when the weather really, starts to break a little bit, and the closer you get to that, then stoneflies will become more effective. So I'm typically 14 to 16 in caddis. I carry 14 and 16, but fish primarily a size 16 in the hare's ear. I believe all my hex nymphs are about a size 12 nymph hook, or actually I might even move into a size 12 streamer hook on these. I can't remember exactly what hook it's on, but I also do a jointed version, so that's on like a size 10 egg hook with a articulation shank off the back. So I'll tie some articulated hex nymphs as well. And those are super effective. I do some with flashback, which I think you can see here, and then some that are a little bit more natural with just a pheasant tail wing case on them. But that's basically my nymph box for steelhead. Caddis, hare's ear, pecks, and stoneflies, and a plethora, just a range of sizes, from little baby stoneflies down here at the bottom. I think you can see that down here, to big Pat's rubber legs, that you might float if small stuff isn't working, bigger stoneflies. So that's kind of my nymph box for steelhead, and in the winter especially, I'm going to focus on those patterns. Okay, so then we'll move into spring. So you got fresh fish coming in from the lake to spawn, plus all the fish that have been there all winter. Once fish hit the gravel, eggs again are going to take over. So I'm just going to bring that box out real quick again, just to show some of the colors that I'll carry. This is steelhead sizes, so 10 to 12 is usually good. For steelhead, some people are going to go maybe even to a 14, depending on the hooks that you use, and the differences in sizes. But these are all on, I think, size 12, maybe 10 even. I just tie them with the same size 10 hook with just a little smaller egg cut on them. But I've got my pinks, I've got my chartreuse over here. I've got steely orange is going to be huge early in the season. Some apricot colors here as well, and McCheese yellow. So all these brighter colors are going to be for early in the spring, and then you're going to go through the same transition. You're going to get into your paler pinks, paler orange, whites, blues, and then chartreuse probably in dirty water is pretty consistent throughout the season. But as the spawning winds down, you'll start using the paler colors. Swinging flies is still going to be really good. Maybe not really good. Most of the fish are going to be focusing on eggs. But you do want to swing some flies in certain runs in the spring. And so I'll bring some of these back out here. What you're targeting primarily when you're swinging flies in the spring is going to be dropbacks. And so those fish are going to be on the move. They're going to be aggressive and hungry because they've spawned, and now they're going to just put on the feed bag as they run quickly back out to the lake. They don't want to stay in the river any longer than they have to, but they're going to grab what they can grab on the way. So you're going to swing flies, I think sculpin and leech patterns are probably going to be most effective for those fish. But, so I've got a sculpin helmet, sculpin pattern there, and a weighted swing leech pattern there. Those swung through structure and some of the faster runs, or really pretty much anywhere. Those drop backs are going to be kind of throughout the river because they're shooting down. So sometimes they'll be in kind of weird spots, but if you want to catch them while they're resting, they're probably going to be in structure. So those weighted flies are going to be good. Your intruders and, kind of more traditional swing flies are going to pick up spawning, fish behind spawning steelhead. So behind gravel, these can, they can be territorial. You might pick some up with traditional swing flies. I like a little bit more natural color, but still with a fair amount of flash. So olives, gold, copper, some yellows are good. And then on dark cloudy days or stained water, black and blue, or blue and purple, or black and purple intruders are going to be keys. And then I talked about it in the salmon video, but I'm going to mention them here too. I've got the Game Changer intruders as a real versatile fly. I can strip these or I can swing them. So these are going to be in my box you know, anytime I'm going to have a possibility of stripping or swinging flies, I'm going to have these colors in the box of this fly. But I talk a little bit more about it in the salmon video, so I'll kind of move quickly through these, but these are going to be key for both swinging and stripping. And then dropbacks, obviously, being aggressive, you're gonna, as the spawn winds down and you have more dropbacks, the D&D is gonna pick right back up.